right, this one is called the Epstein Truth. Hi, I'm James Everdusky. Yes, that Everdusky. Today, the day I'm recording this is July the 16th, and I'm going to give you the scoop on Jeffrey Epstein. I have absolutely no idea why no one else has done this yet, because it really shouldn't be me, especially me, telling you what you really need to know about the Epstein disclosures. I really kind of hate that I'm the first one to bring this to you. This is the truth on the Epstein disclosures. Now, there's a lot of chaos. There's a lot of infighting and a lot of bad blood right now between what we think of as ideological brethren caused by this case. Right? Vision. Stop it, because I'm about to deliver you the objective truth, and none of you are going to like it. There just seems to be too much anger right now over the lack of disclosure. But first, let's recap. Whether this is speculative or not, the buzz is that Epstein was connected to intel agencies. That's not only plausible and credible, it's actually very credible. And there's, there are documented references of that, which, by the way, I kind of considered sloppy. To be a lily white operative, there really should be no trail. There should be no clue. There should be no reference. No one should know this kind of stuff. But in his case, those connections, they even include our own CIA, and strangely enough, I've heard some others, but strangely enough, even the Saudis, and it goes as far back as Khashoggi, not the reporter Khashoggi of recent chopitude, but the other Khashoggi of similar fate, as I recall, from decades ago. There's even speculation regarding Mossad. All of that's credible too, but not in the way that you think. Jeffrey Epstein himself, here's what I mean by that. Jeffrey Epstein himself, while an intelligence asset, was not the actual operator. The actual intel operator was Ms. Maxwell. Ghislaine Maxwell was Epstein's handler. Now, there is some buzz about that, the internet and popular buzz, and that is kind of that the operation was a honey trap using young prostitutes who prostituted themselves to influential men in order to leverage those men when needed. For now, put aside your moral outrage. All of it, as far as I'm concerned, is just fake and feigned for public consumption, especially those of you with a microphone. Put your morality aside. I'm really no longer interested in hearing your moral judgments. I'm not the least bit interested. Quite frankly, I'm kind of tired of hearing it. All the fake press and the politicians as they all try to outdo each other, competing against each other.
This call is from a federal prison.
Yes, by the way, I'm calling from a federal prison. And pretending that you're outraged at the mistreatment of children. Your judgment, your fake outrage, that's meaningless. It's also very transparent. You look like a fool, so put it aside. And just look at the effectiveness of the operation. The reason that such an operation was as successful as it was, as a potential push-op against any of the men now compromised, is because it works. Historically, it works. The worst accusation, listen, the most damaging accusation that there is one of some sort of a sexual nature against children. And then the press and the media and the pundits and the politicians, they love to label 16 and 17-year-old prostitutes as children because it makes the prostitutes look a little less prostitute-y. But it was not Epstein's op. It was Maxwell's op, Miss Maxwell. Epstein benefited from it financially by leveraging money away from the managed, quote, accounts of the men who the prostitutes compromised, by prostituting as prostitutes do. It was very prostitutional of them. And sure, Miss Maxwell certainly was along for the financial ride too, as Epstein supported her, and so were the prostitutes. And let me say, it's kind of inarguable. Maybe you could probably mace against this, but there's really nothing in the world more horny than a 16-year-old girl, probably more so when she's getting paid for prostituting herself out to billionaires, politicians, influencers, I think even a prince in there. So why did the young prostitutes, i.e., let's say, call it for what it is, i.e., whores for cash, why did the prostitutes prostitute themselves to those people? Why compromise those men, other than just extorting cash by their, prostitution? Well, the objective, of course, was to build and control a network of people who have influence. And by influence, I mean social control over various population segments. Like when Bill Gates nudges a population, they move. Or like when Bill Clinton speaks or sets a political tone, an entire political party, which that's half the country, follows him. So men who have influence, weak men, who have influence over masses of people, they became, in this case, unwitting agents. They were force multipliers. The men kind of became assets. Follow me? In this case, Ghislaine Maxwell's assets. So for whichever service that she worked for, and there's lots of speculation there, plenty of evidence too, I don't have the tools from here to fish around for evidence of that. The morality aside, kind of have to admire it. Jeffrey Epstein himself, he was just a tool. He was her tool. He was, by most real accounts, a genius, especially a numerical genius. But he was easy to lead, easy for her to control, because all she had to do was feed his addiction or his monster and try to keep the fleas off of him, which apparently she didn't do so well the second time around. So anyway, all this angst about not seeing the Epstein list really must be quelled. That's just the evil side of you, which just loves to validate your own insecurity, even your own phony moral facade, seeking out the banal. The more salacious it is, the better. The P. Diddy type cases, the sordid details which you use to pretend that you're superior. You are not. There were people that were sleeping with the underage girls, and we want to know who they are. Really? Why, you perv? Anyway, you are the kind of muckrakers which the media feeds to keep up that frenzy of clicks and views. Sorry, told you weren't going to like this, but I'm in a U.S. federal prison. I can say stuff like this. I can say all these things, the truths that you don't like, because I'm in a federal prison. I can be honest. It's very freeing here. I can say all the things that you can't, because being in a federal prison grants me a hell of a lot of freedom to do so without fear of your fake judgment. The point is, the op most likely worked, and it worked well. According to the DOJ, I think it lasted many years, resulted in hundreds of millions, at least half a billion dollars. The prostitutes, along with Epstein and Maxwell, they profited from their actions, which is, by the way, the prostitution, and they were part of the leveraging operation of Miss Maxwell. They were part of it. Whether the prostitution, by the prostitutes, whether it happened on a plane or on an island or underneath a portrait of Bill Clinton with a bull, yeah, by the way, that's real. None of that matters, because the prostitutes were recruited agents in the op, as were, if you think about it, the compromised men that the young prostitutes snapped.
This call is from a federal prison.
They were kind of unwitting, in a sense. By the way, who do you stop with the, oh no, but they were 17. Who do you think is going to be more successful in snagging billionaires? A young prostitute or an old one? I mean, it's pretty hard to compromise some really rich guy using a geriatric whore. If you could find one. Probably much harder to find, too. Listen, Ethel may not be so good at reverse cowgirl, but she makes a mean butt cake. Anyway, the point is that the young whores, old whores, whatever, the ages of the prostitutes, and their compromised men, they were all part of the operation. Ghislaine Maxwell's operation. Her intelligence agency's operation. Whether you approve of it or not. If that information is correct, the connection there, and there are plenty of people that say that it is, they, the young prostitutes as well, are part of the operation. Therefore, they are part of, here's the word, sources and methods. And that is the key. That is the gist. That is why the details whether there's a list or not, those details cannot be disclosed. The reason that Pam Bondi, the Attorney General of the DOJ, the same DOJ that the FBI, that is Patel and Bongino, works for, the reason that no DOJ person can disclose the Epstein details as relates to who questions is simply because it would be illegal for her to do so. Telling the public, the press or not, any of the who's of the ops, or the how's even, is against the law, simply because the FBI is, strangely enough, considered an intel agency. Granted, they shouldn't because they're all idiots, but they are. Meaning they have to deal with, and they have to obey the Title 50 laws that protect against disclosure of sources and methods. These are the CIPA laws, CIPA, the Classified Information Protection Act. It applies not just to the CIA, but across all the agencies of the IC. Well, which laws, Dusky, you ask? Listen, this is really, really important. There's a whole slew of laws. There are criminal violations of 18 U.S.C. 798 A4, the Classified Information Protection Act, 18 U.S.C. Appendix 3, subsection 1, even subsection 14, section 6 is a very detailed procedure regarding how the AG in particular can handle such information, that is court cases. And the Epstein case was a court case. Subsection 12, section B, numbers 1 through 4, or at least 1 through 3, they preclude any disclosure of even deals and decisions not to prosecute. In the next small segment, which should be attached to this segment, I'll finish this up, and then you will understand the reason the Epstein disclosures cannot happen, why it is illegal. I'll call you back in about 30 minutes. Really, what I was discussing was why it is illegal for Pam Bondi to disclose those details. In fact, I was talking about subsection 12, section B, numbers 1 through 4 of the Classified Information Protection Act. She cannot disclose that. There is a court case, or was a court case, involving that. However, section 13, same thing, mandates that the Attorney General notify the SSCI, that's the Senate Intelligence Committee, and the House, the HPSCI, when prosecution is not decided on. However, in this case, notification to those congressional bodies kind of turned out to be unnecessary because, Epstein died. But it's completely illegal for her to disclose sources and methods in that sense. Even the APA, the Administrative Procedures Act, under the APA at 5 USC subsection 552, such public disclosure is actually exempt. Now that's in regards to CIA records, but why would some disclosure to some AM radio host forfeit that exemption? It wouldn't. There have been entire cases lost simply because disclosure occurred, like former CIA station chief Joe Fernandez, Costa Rica. He was prosecuted, and like me, by the National Security Division of the DOJ under special counsel. His entire case had to be thrown out on appeal. The district judge just blindly went along with the special prosecutor, as they tend to do, just like in my case, but the circuit ended up throwing it out. Also, under Title 50, Chapter 46, subsection 3502 at sequence, also Title 50, subsection 3507. That specifically, get this, specifically prohibits not just the CIA, but any agencies that are under the DNI from disclosure of sources and methods. And guess what? The FBI is under the DNI when it comes to intelligence operations. This stuff is serious. Just ask Frank Snepp what happens when that's breached. Ask Jeff Sterling. Ask John Kiriakou. Even under regulation 32 CFR 1900.01 forbids disclosing sources and methods, specifically because she is.
This call is from a federal prison.
She wasn't in the DOJ and had information like that. She could do it, but she can't right now. It's illegal. This is really not something that can actually be toyed with. This is not a trivial matter. I actually have friends by people who have sacrificed a lot to protect you and your family and your way of life, but they still ended up getting tossed into prison for talking about or even just threatening to disclose, what they know. Look, brief aside here, you may not know this, I'm sure you don't, but the BOP has an entire unit. It's the National Security Unit, which they have absolutely no control over whatsoever, because everyone imprisoned in that uber-secret prison, inside of a prison, deep inside the USA 80X Supermax, they're all there by a special executive order called the SAM order. There's only 30 people or so there sent to that unit, sent there to be disappeared. Not because of what they did, but because of what they know, what they can disclose. They're there, in fact, under AG custody, not BOP control, because the BOP has no, they can't control it. Only the AG, the Attorney General, in this case herself, is the one person who can bind that presidential order to disappear somebody. Yes, I said disappear somebody. Only the president's AG, only that person, using regulation 28 CFR 501.2. And by the way, whether you believe it or not, a SAM order, SAM, to disappear somebody like that, which is no communication with any person whatsoever in any fashion, it doesn't even require a conviction. That conditional PED, citing national security, that can be applied to any person, whether it's a citizen or not, whether there's a conviction or not. Surely that can't be constitutional, you say. Well, you know what? It isn't. But still, it exists. The secret prison inside of a prison. I call it the SAM unit instead of the National Security Unit. Well, why? Well, because everybody in it has a SAM order on them to be disappeared, endorsed by the head, as required, of federal law enforcement. That's the FBI director. And the head of the intelligence community. That's the DCI. Well, surely that's a conspiracy theory, Dusky, you say. How could you know of such a secretive place? I don't believe you. Well, it's easy, because I was in it. I spanned 4.5 years on an Obama-ordered SAM, Special Administrative Measures. That's so vague it could mean anything. Bound by Eric Holder himself. It was endorsed first by Mueller and Brennan, and then by Comey and Brennan. And let me tell you something. When they once you vanished, you vanished. It is completely unconstitutional. Well, how unconstitutional? I can tell you this. I was not even allowed contact. This is a matter of record. I was not even allowed contact or any communication with any human being whatsoever, including even my own attorney of record. For real. And I know all of this because I was there. I know some of those disappeared people personally and why they've been disappeared. The reason I'm not there now is because Trump won in 2016. That's a much deeper story. My point is that these matters are taken very, very seriously, and fabricating some sort of a criminal case, entrapment, even killing potential whistleblowers, that's not uncommon, depending on how motivated someone is to prevent that disclosure, even just to prevent, embarrassment, political embarrassment. Again, if anyone knows this firsthand, I do. I never would have believed it, but I do. I know this firsthand, and quite frankly, from both sides. And I remind you that I'm calling from a federal prison. But this video isn't about me. The reason that Bondi, or anyone else who works for her, including in the FBI, reason that they cannot disclose Epstein details is because it is illegal to do so. Well, how come she doesn't just say that then? Well, because to say that, if she said that, well, that just confirms the op itself. Which again, sources and methods. So the only people who can disclose those details are the very men who were compromised. And they're sure as hell not going to say anything. Even the young prostitutes can't really. Why? Because they were part of the op. Yes, they were sequestered, compartmentalized, sure, but they knew the role in an illegal behavior. So they were support figures. Thus, by legal definition, they were, quote, recruited agents in the op. That's the way the law actually reads. The way the law actually reads is the only persons, only the people who were, quote, unwitting can actually disclose the details without penalty, because the only unwitting people here were the compromised rich guys. Then good luck trying to get them to say anything. So what happened is this. It's very simple. I mean, I know it sounds complicated, but it's actually not. Hopeful Bongino and Hopeful Patel and Hopeful Bondi, they came in looking to disclose, as you know, as they said during the campaign. But some DOJ attorney, probably from the National Security Division, like the special prosecutor in my case, Andrew Sigler, who worked underneath Peter Strzok, probably pulled Bondi aside and told her, look, we got a problem. You can't do it. You can't allow it. So,
This call is from a federal prison.
yeah, I told you so. It really has to come from somewhere else, come from somebody else. So how, then? How are you going to get disclosure? Well, you're not, so get over it. The only thing I can think of is Ms. Maxwell has already been prosecuted, so she could, if she was given immunity, but she's not going to do that. In fact, if anything, she's going to cover things up even more, or throw as much as she can under the dead guy, one of the dead guys in this case, Epstein. So anyway, now you know the Epstein truth. So everybody just chill out. You're not going to get the details. You can't. Those are the people who can't give them to you. Those are the ones you're mad at. You want them to violate the law? Well, they're not going to do it. So just chill out. And by the way, everyone, I soon intend to post the full truth about the phony Lee County smear against me. That's going to just completely blow your mind. Anyway, until then, that's my 3 chords in the truth.